But he definitely is going to keep that same level of pressure, constantly trying to move across the map and get it done. But Serral is no pushover in this department, Fear Dragon. We could see him try to strike back once or twice in this series.
Oh, 100%. I think one of the ways that we've especially seen Raynor find success against Clem is in finding opportunities to strike back as Clem is putting on his own aggression. Those Ling run-bys, when Clem is doing his multi-prong harass drops with the push at the front and also like the Liberator in the back and everything, Clem is taking all of his units. He's not actually, even though it feels like it sometimes, he's not actually a magician, as he does end up losing that Reaper over there, unfortunately. But he's not conjuring units out of nowhere, right? His macro's good, but he is taking all of his units that sometimes players will leave back at home for defensive purposes and sending them across the map to be aggressive with. So that is where some players have found success against Clem.
Delaying creep spread in any measurable way, especially when you're Clem, is just so massive because on that production tab, Stim is finishing up. He's getting his mines, his medevacs, all the reactors on his barracks are finishing. He's about to turn into a well-oiled machine, pumping out Marines and a whole lot of other things. These Hellions, so the auto turret's going to peel for the Hellions to just fight straight up against the Lings. Typically supposed to be a good fight. With the creep, is a little bit easier to get the surround from those Lings. The Hellions AoE, not as useful when the Lings are all evenly spread out in a circle around those units. But Fear Dragon, all I'm trying to say is I love this Raven Hellion opener, and I think that it did a really good job, particularly, and I'm going to emphasize this, particularly because he brings the Raven home and repairs it. He recognizes the value in having this unit and keeping it alive. If you're not fat fingering the F2 key, it's not going to mess with your stim. So the worst thing that you can do, or at least the best thing that you can do with the Raven at this situation is you can just keep it at home, or you can bring it for a later push when you want to clear some creep. Because if it has to die, like, sure, whatever. But, getting the value out of it as much as he does is why Clem is as good as he is.
Yeah, we got the Widow Mine dropping over in the bottom right-hand side. Clem recognizing, all right, you're already pulling your workers? Well, I'll just put one Widow Mine over there and send the other one over to another base while I also go for a little bit of a drop harass inside your main base. This is just Clem playing like Clem. He is trying to just pull his opponents apart in a lot of different angles. Once the momentum of his attacks gets started, the whole point of Clem is that he just does not stop. He is constantly finding opportunities to throw new attacks at you with barely 30 or so seconds at a time to breathe. And you already see, well, middle Widow Mines got cleaned up. The drop got pushed back a little bit, but he's still pushing with that. He's already got his next attack set up on the right-hand side moving forward. And all those Hellions from earlier also going to be able to get involved in the fight again.
Yeah, and we see that drop coming back to the main base. Even has tunneling claws started while his fourth base begins construction outside of that third, building 3 mines at a time. We got Hellbats and auto turrets up front. The Banelings not able to get those big juicy connections, but there are still a few of them alive. Widow Mine is going to kill a bunch of Lings that were surrounding that turret. And this is what I was talking about, Fear Dragon. He doesn't have to get through as much creep to reach the position that he wants to be in on this game. The Marines should try to let those Hellions... Oh my God, the mine gets every single one of the Banelings, and that's it. GG Clem takes the first game, or I guess the second map of our grand final. And even a guy like Clem, right? You can see the SCV scouting around. He was looking for that third base because that's what's telling him whether or not it's going to be like a 2-base Roach Ling, could be Ravager Ling. There's a lot of different options and possibilities that you can go for in these kinds of situations, especially with shorter maps, no ramp into the natural. It's not like it's the easiest to defend on if you go 3 command center and don't scout. But he had a Widow Mine at the top of his ramp, and again, he built a bunker at the top of his main ramp, which I think that says everything we need to know. And it's not even just that, hey, this build kind of looked weird. It's that this map kind of asks for it.
But it is also going to be a handful of roaches being made behind this, Nate. And that is actually, this is becoming more than just a handful to deal with some Hellions.
I think this lines up with our expectations for this map, especially with it being very Terran favored. There's a reason why it's been vetoed almost out of every single series played the whole entire tournament. For the most part, North American and Europe. I think it's only when we had that map graphic, it was like 2% pick rate or something insane. So Clem's going to come try to land this drop. The Queens are there. They're ready to catch it. The Queens are also split out towards that third. So no pressure done just yet. But as you said, I mean, he built 8 Roaches. He's turning half of them into Ravagers right now. And he's getting a couple Hellion pickoffs too outside in the middle of the map, which is also fantastic. for Serral. Let's see how much he can do with this attack, as the bunker is just now getting started. 2 of them in the natural for our Terran player.
I think Clem just did not realize that this was happening. He had his drop on the other side of the map that he ended up having to pull back. Now it's only just arriving, but imagine if these Marines were able to attack at these Lings during all this fight. The Hellions all get picked off, and Serral storms on through into the natural. The bunker's barely going to be able to finish up in time, but the Ravager's going to be able to quickly start making short work of that. There's just not enough surface area for these SCVs to repair. Are there enough units over here for Serral to break on through? He gets a full surround of the bunker as well with the Lings. No repair option available. The SCV starting to fall. And there is one of those high yield depots over here if Serral wants some free pickings. But no, he's going to settle for the game, it looks like.
I love this. I love this build. I love this play out of Serral. It lines up with everything we were talking about with this map, with the distance and whatnot. But the key takeaway is that even though he went pool first and took that late third, Serral gets the second map win for himself. Is it going to just be early roaches? Last game, the reason why Clem lost, at least, if I had to try to break it down simply, Fear Dragon, it's that he prepared for an attack that wasn't going to come for another 2 or 3 minutes, right? And in this game, I think Serral was trying to be like, yeah, I went full pool first again. You better get ready for that 7-minute Ravager Ling timing. But actually, it was going to be a really fast Roach push. And I think that you called that beautifully. The SCV did come back and see it. He canceled the Roach Warren at the final second. And the bunker is going to be made at the top of that ramp. So it's not like he gets nothing for building and canceling the Roach Warren. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, I assume that he wanted to do that attack if Clem never scouted it.
Move forward, he's like, you do have a third base and everything. Okay. Reaper sees most of what it needs to see, and it knows, okay, you're not actually committing to this Roach attack. So Clem is probably going to be very happy with how things end up shaking out in the end.
Yeah. And you know what? There is something else worth pointing out here. He does go for a second barracks instead of a starport, which is unusual enough on its own. But I also ask myself whether that's because he had to build that bunker. Maybe he didn't have the minerals to start a starport immediately after the factory. And he's like, I'm going to do something a little more conservative. But as he moves out, the Lings move in. This is what Serral is known for. These Ling run-bys, him and Raynor, have terrorized the European scene over the last few years with this pressure. And yeah, he doesn't really get much for it. He pulls back, but he got information. He pulled the army back home and thusly buys himself some time to get this creep spread by that third battery to protect it and allow it to finish.
Yeah, not only that, but we had a few more of the Queens get into the front lines over here. The creep spread, like you said, is going to be nice, but also now the Lings have an opportunity. A few more of them are actually going to be popping during all this, and he even has still a few more on the other side of the map. Now, there are just still more Hellions being made, which is valuable information for Serral to know how many Hellions he should be expecting. But Serral, yeah, I think that these little counterattacks have definitely done a little bit of work over here in getting Serral prepared for any kind of attack. This is obviously
they're better.
Dim is obviously finished up over here. There's no combat shields or anything just yet, but even scanning forward just to get a little bit extra vision, clean up maybe one of the creep tumors, misses the one just barely on the edge over there. So
I can't believe the Cyclone got that queen. Lings are ready to catch that third as it comes down to land. And Clem did not get, as you said, Fear Dragon, the outermost creep tumors. He actually missed the 2 most important ones with that scan, which makes it quite a bit harder to push up. But there's no banding speedy target. Every single last one of them down.
Oh, no.
And just the queens on the roll won't be enough. GG is called.
Yeah, we at least do see that Clem is thinking a little bit longer term by going for the pretty quick third. So you see over there, he's going for a pretty normal looking opening here. As the Reaper will continue to poke on around, but behind this, we get Hellions. I also want to see what he ends up doing with the eventual starport, but he did go for the 2 racks with the factory again.
He's been favoring this one today. And the reason why I like this build so much is because he has so far done a really good job of trying to maintain and retain his Hellions.
He gets a really, really nice victory over there, and he's just going to be flooding out a handful more Lings just to deal with the follow-up drop harassment that he knows is going to be coming, and he even spots the angle it's coming in from.
Yeah, that's a great spotting Zergling. I love you calling that out, Fear Dragon, too. He's got it right over by the rocks. Also, knowing if those rocks get attacked is valuable. Typically, you won't blow them up on your own side early, unless you're the Zerg. You don't want to tear and siege up on the other side of those and shoot down at your forces. Here we've got plenty of queens. When we talk about them getting picked off early on maps like Jegantha, having all of them here makes stopping these attacks a bit easier. He doesn't have Hellions to cover for him if he tries to dive any of those up front with the Marines. He's going to get an Overlord on the right side, but Serral, I think, is as best positioned as we've seen him thus far in this grand final, at least for the potential of that mid-game stage. The Queens have him kind of pinned. He has to pick up and move on out because there's 44 Lings. He's not going to get overwhelmed early on, or at least he's not planning on it. So might need a few more. I don't know. You need, what is it, like 4 or 5 Banes to get the depot, but he needs Banelings to kill the SCVs too. So that remains to be seen while Clem continues to try to put this outward pressure. But you're right. He's very well set up. And again, Baneling speed is ready. He's got that so much earlier. Mine's going to get 4 workers on that west side base.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's an armor or anything left around just yet, so he is going to have to either pick up and get out of there with those Widow Mines.
Or he just go around!
Oh! They're retreating into the Banelings! Oh no! The command center lifting up makes things even more complicated. Clem a bit busy with the micro on the other side of the map, lifting up his Marines, trying to keep his medevacs alive against all those other units. Widow Mines getting dropped everywhere. Serral is on top of it. Even though Serral has lost a handful of workers to the Widow Mine drops, it really has been pretty low in number. And Clem is going to try and dive in over here for these queens, but look at those transfuses. That queen refuses to die. It finally does in the very end. But oh boy.
Baneling Boogaloo round 2, except this time, little split action. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll just take these depots. Could burn down the Drilling Claws tech lab. I love how we were all like, oh yeah, he needs this many Banelings to break the depot and then get through there, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, actually, he just went around it. He just went around it, and Clem responds in kind. Beautiful mine shot straight into the heart of that pack of Ling Bane. But the majority of it is still there. He's still got enough to kind of hold on these fronts, but this is going to be the real test. Clem's starting to get through the creep. He's keeping the rest of his army. He's bringing it all together on the southeast side, defending this 4th/5th base is going to be very important. But that's, I think, why Serral's been expanding so much, in case he loses it, Fear Dragon, as he's going to try and go up this ramp.
Yeah, going up the ramp is going to be a tough one, even if there is no Drilling Claws on the way. Snapping up a lot of these Banelings as they're morphing in. Clem does not want to overcommit, though. He backs up to the safety of some of his Widow Mines, but the Banelings are, for the most part, kept intact. And Serral's going to be able to get a little bit of a cleanup over here. Forces Clem back a tiny bit. Clem does restart his Drilling Claws upgrade, has his 2-2 on the way and everything as he continues to pressure forward.
Yeah, Widow Mines. I love the choice to use many of those, by the way. That we've seen so many tank-based play, but when you've got micro like this, picking off those Banes, it is just a treat to watch. Now, he kills those and then immediately burrows, so forces the scan, which is a great reactive move by Clem, but the fact that Serral had the wherewithal to bring just enough Banes to get in and burrow a few after the first kind of SCV detonation, it's pretty good. I love seeing this. When he's allowed to multitask and do his thing, he looks fantastic. And those mines, you set them and forget them, and those Zerglings, well, I'm sure we'll forget about them in 10 seconds too.
Yes, as Clem has learned by playing against Raynors, Karen, the Widow Mines can be pretty damn effective when you just kind of scatter them around, set them and forget them, like you said, especially with the defense. But well, we're starting to see that Serral's chasing him pretty far off of creep into the right-hand side, and he does have the overwhelming numbers over here, but is he going to need some more units back at home? No. He's got it covered. He's even got a few more burrowed Banelings set up around the map. He is down a little bit of that army supply, but for the most part, Serral has been holding his own, is now getting ready to start transitioning up. He's going up to the hive. He's adding on the Hydra Den and probably getting ready to eventually start moving into things like lurkers.
Yeah, this is Lings trying to push the rest of the army away. The first Liberator sieges up to cover the retreat path. They're typically not known for their ability to eradicate large numbers of Lings, but those Widow Mines sure are, and they will clean up. Okay, actually, the Queens walked off into that Liberator and challenged it, and I think it was able to get a little bit more damage done than perhaps we were initially expecting during the rest of that micro, as he approaches the edge of creep once more. And this is a very important dance for Serral. As long as he keeps replenishing these tumors, Ravi, he's not getting attacked at his bases. At least the big attacks can't go there. So he's buying a lot of time for himself. Getting that hive is going to be really, really important for things like adrenal glands.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point. He's trying to keep this creep start going, and it's worth noting that Sterile is willing to sacrifice a lot of his units to get that creep start going forward, because he continuously has been taking these fights pretty far off of creep. A lot of the time, Zerg players will try and chase the Tyrion player until they get off of creep, and then they'll back off. But Sterile has been really going far out for a lot of those Marines, so he can respread some of that creep. And, well, he's going to be able to get a cleanup over here. His Ling run by does get pushed back. Sterile's just trying to buy a lot of time for all these other upgrades and all these other investments to start coming on forward. With Clem, he's getting closer and closer to that max out point. He is looking to just go, and I think he's finally found an angle where there just isn't as much creep.
No, he's got the Widowmine set up to cover the flank, and as you said, there's no creep between these two positions, makes it a little bit dicier. Ooh. The mines have chunked out huge portions of that army, and there's really not a lot of Banelings with this either, so he picks up, he's able to move away relatively easily. He has a massive medevac count too, 11 of them. I'm waiting for him to get more Liberators, does finally boot up another one. Yeah, and that's the thing that always comes into play, where if you don't make the switch into Ghost, and he does have 4 of them on the way right now, if you don't make the switch into Ghost and they get a huge number of lurkers, that area of effect damage when you've got 10 range can really rip your army to pieces. And heavily siege bases like this, the Lings and Banes are going to get ready to protect the lurkers. I feel like he kind of wants to throw them at the SCVs, but you need them to help zone for the lurkers themselves. A bit extended, not a whole lot here to actually support that lurker force, but there's no planetary on the right side, so it actually opens it up for the Lings to still get a little bit of damage done.
Adrenal Gland Ling's gonna have a heck of a time working away at the command center, but they decide to go after some of the Ghosts, and the Widowmine saves the day. Ghosts tank the Widowmine shot like beasts, and well, the Ling run by is cleaned up. Clem does manage to defend his top center base and doesn't really lose a lot of workers over there as well, so overall, a solid defense there from Clem. And like you said, he now actually has...
Noise.
Yeah, decent connection over there.
Hey,
I actually thought he was going to get more.
The number of professional games where those do nothing is high enough that killing anything is enough for me, to be honest. The lurkers are going to try and move up while there's still some creep here, though. They do get to burrow right up front. There are as well... Ooh, that EMP. I was about to say. There's Vipers to try to pull the medevacs or maybe hit a couple of abducts on the Ghost if they were able to. But a fat, juicy EMP right in the middle will shut that down. So the lurkers have range. He opted for that first, the combat viable ability. But once that burrow upgrade finishes, it's going to be something that Clem really has to consider. His multi-prong harass has been great. He's been all over the map, but we haven't seen him cut the head off the snake just yet.
No, by absolutely no means so far. Sterile is going to continue to try and establish a little bit more of a presence in the bottom right-hand side so we can get up proper mining and stuff there. We are getting to that point where I think the final base is now being established in the top left-hand side by Clem, so not a whole lot of other options after that. How did this lurker get there? Was there an Overlord drop? Did that lurker just walk in?
Did he get there? That's a great question. And I love that you point that out, too. These are the last couple of untouched bases that were on the map. So once we're fully situated here, that battle of attrition begins, where you really don't want to take those cost and effective fights. The main base naturals, a lot of those mined out. Banelings are going to clear the Marines off this, and that is the trigger for Sterile to move in with the rest of his army. Having not enough Marines makes those Zerglings a little bit tougher. Of course, the Ghosts deal bonus damage to them, but you're mostly looking to get steady targeting onto the lurkers if you can. And you do need to have buffer units, as the Ghost snipe ability has the same range as the lurker attack. So it is a dance. It's not a binary, one person has this advantage. You really have to control and space out the units properly. And of course, you have to make sure that you have vision if those lurkers are able to burrow in time too.
Yeah, a lot of little finesse goes into the making sure that the connections and stuff end up being pretty good over there. And you can handle those lurkers, but these Ling run-bys over here in the top left-hand side, you can see how much it pulls Clem all the way up to the top left. And now there's even some burrow play at the same time that the attack comes in. Clem is not paying attention to the top left, and the Banelings are going to be able to decimate that planetary fortress. But that was a lot of Banelings to use, and I do want to note, Sterile doesn't exactly have a massive bank. He's now sitting down about 40, almost 50 army supply. Is this Clem's time to go.
This is the really awkward part about this. He's trying to be really aggressive, but I love what you just said. He doesn't really have the bank to just throw everything away and rebuild it. When we talk about Zerg late game, that's what you're supposed to try and do, right? You spend all this larva, you can remax instantly, but he doesn't actually have the bank to do that. He EMPs, it looked like he EMP'd some of the queens, lands a few snipes on them, so if they do have any energy left, they have to use it immediately, and he just rips and tears through this army like a hot knife through butter. Fear Dragon, the southeast hatchery is gone, and I really look to get.
That is, it's certainly going to be a problem soon if it isn't already, and man, some of these Widow Mines, like the Widow Mine that just got picked off in the top left, up to like 25 or so kills, just Clem is getting so much value in all of these run buys. Even if he's taking damage, he's actually cleaning up quite a few Lings, or Steryl's having to commit all these Banelings and everything. It really does seem like there's a very, very good reason why Clem is up 70-80 supply right now. The ball is in Rain or Steryl's court to get something done, but it's so difficult to get a lot done when there's so many Widow Mines everywhere.
And again, another great little Ling attack. But as you said, Fear Dragon, Steryl's on the wrong side of the economic balance with, he's got 4,000 gas and 400 minerals. So unless there's the most epic infestor transition of all time, even trying to build lurkers, they're still pretty mineral heavy because you have to, the hydras themselves, right? They're going to cost a lot of minerals to rebuild those. And as good as the lurkers have been, he still hasn't taken the big fights. That's nice on the ghost. But he realizes, like, I can't even build anything else. And
yeah, this is going to be, for sure, a very important one. So far, Reaper has not gotten any damage done, thanks to the 6 Lings of the Queen. It does finally get one of those Lings. But behind this, Nate, that's what I want to know. Is Clem going for that 2 racks opening again? And it looks like this game, no, he's not. He's going for the 1-1-1.
Yes, I do enjoy seeing this. I wonder if he takes that gas in his natural because of the way that he likes to rally his workers, or if it's in the event that an Overlord scout goes into the main, maybe he wants him to think he doesn't have as much gas as he does. I'm not entirely sure, but he's really liked this style of opening, and you're correct. We do get to see now, finally, again, that 1-1-1 opener instead of just going straight into the 2 racks bio setup. So he's going to have a little more flexibility with going for this cloak and then maybe a Banshee. I think the Overlord is going to get pushed away, so he cancels it and starts a Raven. Not a huge shocker there. But the last time he went Hellion Raven on Jegantha, it set him up really well. He was able to keep the creep back. He was able to kill a queen. And he was able to give himself a lot of information just by being in front of Serral. He was able to see what he had.
Yeah, that Raven in the other game straight up set him up for his big win. Just being able to kill off that creep and doing everything you were talking about. Now, so far, he hasn't had a whole lot of success in cleaning up the creep over here, and he's kind of aiming to try and find an opportunity to dive in on those drones, or at least threaten it, so Serral has to respect that. He groups up and stops mining with his drones for a split second, but Clem is still being pretty conservative with his Hellions. He knows that there's going to be a lot more value with the Hellions if he can pair them up with that Raven. As I know there's some Terran players that... Oh, that was
He killed his own Reaper to get the creep tumor.
Yeah, target fired his own Reaper.
In the chat for that guy.
Yeah, one thing I really like also that Clem was doing in that Jagannatha game with this Raven was that every single time the queens started getting a little too far forward or something, he would throw down these auto turrets like this to try and push these units back. This time, the Lings are going to get a big surround on a lot of the Hellions over here. A great pick off for Serral.
Yeah, that was a really beautiful surround by Serral, and I think what you were saying is exactly what Clem was trying to do, which is you throw down the auto turrets, and you're like, oh yeah, well he's still going to try to get the Hellions, but if you're not microing, if you're like a move, a bunch of your Lings are gonna go wrap themselves around auto turrets, and those bad boys actually have 1 armor and 150 hit points, so you'll waste a lot of time. He does still have some Hellions. I don't know how much longer he can keep these out on the map without Serral just trying to run him down with the Lings, but the fact that he's able to get a few more tumors here is, in my opinion, a nice little W.
Oh, 100%. I mean, think about also the angle that he's cleaning up on. It's all on this right-hand side. What is the angle every single Terran player is going to try to push on that bottom center base from it? It's literally through exactly that angle, right past that Xel'Naga watchtower. There's very little creep over here, and we already see that this push is getting set up right now. The Raven is still alive as well, so he can clean off some of those creep tumors pretty quickly. The Widow Mine's getting set up, although there is an Overseer over here. throws down an auto turret and even saves the low health Widowmine. My God.
Trying to play for every single little thing that he can get. And hey, even if that mine gets killed now, at the very least, it did better than it would have if it just died immediately. So that queen needs to get an extra transfuse on it. That's a little bit of that energy coming out. Serral trying to move a few lings at a time and drags a beautiful mine shot over these Marines. Still focuses a Baneling before hopping in the medevac and zooming on out. But those Mutalisks, Spear Dragon, that quick fire timing with this build means there's not really a whole lot here to defend. The Marines can stim forward, but with no missile turrets, Serral's got, well, he's got a little Mutalist carnival going on here.
Yeah, it's not an insignificant number of mutas either. It's not just a 5 or so. It's a total of 9. So you really can actually start diving on forward and taking on fights against just small numbers of Marines. But if there's anything over 4 or 5, you're probably going to want to be a little bit careful about it. Muta's going to dive back in over toward the Nashville, find the armory being built, stall that out. A very nice pick off.
Every second that bad boy gets delayed is another second those upgrades catch up. Let's not forget, because you go, he went as fast, Baneling speed and mutas as he really could have. The evolution chambers did come in a little bit later, so his 1-1 is only halfway done. And I think that's why getting that armory delay is such a big deal, because, well, now obviously the mines are going to stay invisible after they shoot, so they are much more threatening than they otherwise would be, too.
A couple more Banelings trying to morph in over here. The Marines are starting to pick away at them, but Baneling run by, going to be able to find a decent bit of damage, even softens up that missile turret for the mutas later on to start diving back in. Speaking of which, the mutas are actually going to be diving into that third base location while Clem is trying to push in at the front. Are there going to be enough Banelings and Lings over here for Serral to defend? He's pushing Clem back off of creep. The Widowmine's going to look for connections.
The splits.
The splits are so strong right there.
Yeah, he's got so much. There's only a handful of Banelings. Look at that target fire. 1 down, 2 down. It's just Mutas versus Marines, and Clem steamrolls through this army. GG, well played is called, and